Alright, so we're back for episode 3. Tonight we're looking at defensive options to follow on from the offensive from previously. I'm going to begin by telling you that mainly in this game most people opt to be highly aggressive. You should always expect an incoming attack pretty much at any point in the game. Chances are your opponent is planning to come at you very soon normally, or at least just to pressure you, just to apply some form of pressure. And the main objective of this, especially early game, is to disrupt your startup. So to disrupt you from how you execute your early game, forcing you into a bad start, forcing you to play uncomfortably from the beginning, and yeah, just kind of putting you onto a bad foot right from the beginning. So we're on Blast Chamber. Again, I've loaded it from the command line. I will explain that at some point. But I'm sure anyone really will help you out. This is pretty basic knowledge, so if you ask any kind of player how to launch a game like this, they should be able to tell you. You can ask me if you're not sure, on Discord or something, or Steam, I'll tell you, I'll explain. But I will probably make a video on that at some point. Sort of like a utility video, sort of things to do with the game outside of actually playing it. So it's important to bear in mind that your opponent could take a scrap field that should have been yours. Okay, so on Blast Chamber, the spawns are northwest, just here, northeast, southeast, and southwest. So let's say I start the game and I spawn northwest. It's safe to assume that this scrap is probably mine, but if a player spawns southwest, they could move here as well to the west area, and then it's going to be a fight to control this scrap. Same here, if two players spawn, one northwest, one northeast, chances are they will fight for this scrap. So Blast Chamber is an interesting map for this because the spawns are, it's not very clear, it's not very guaranteed that you're going to get any scrap at all, honestly. You need to be committing to something and fighting for it. When you do play this map, I'd recommend you to get the scrap on this plateau or this one here, and then try to get something on the side if you can, but obviously it might not work out for you, the scrap in mid as well. But yeah, it might work, it might play out that you get very little. So this is a good map to demonstrate that. And a lot of players will actively look to destroy your scavengers in your silo early game. They'll look to stop your initial scrap intake. So for example, let's say I have southwest spawn. Let's give myself a recycler. I'm with my recycler. I'm going to move it south to this geyser, or this one over here. Let's just take this one for now. I'm obviously, early game, I'm going to play for this scrap on the plateau. But if I want to, as my constructor is going there, and as my scavengers are going to that plateau, just to make it clear I'm talking about here, as they're working this scrap, very early game, I can move around to the northwest. And I will likely find a silo here from my opponent, assuming someone has spawned northwest. There will be activity here, and I can just take out some stuff, take out a styler, take out a scavenger, and get away. This is really going to cripple my opponent. My opponent, who is in northwest, is going to have a really hard time early game, and probably from there I want to keep on attacking. So in terms of the early game, you should expect that it could happen that you lose your scrap collection. That's kind of normal. It's something that probably will happen. But in the first few minutes, your only defense is yourself, right? So on that example, this player, so who I was, let's come around here, let's come to attack. If I was the northwest player, the only way I can stop that from happening is to move south, pick up on radar if he's coming, and then try to win the 1v1, win the dogfight. This is something that's going to happen in the first 5 minutes of the game. You might lose your tank straight away. which is going to give your opponent huge incentive to keep attacking you early and basically put in a rush because you've lost your tank. So it's a good idea to get Scout or Fighter if you're CCA. Get that on you, get that following you, just so you have at least something with you. And it's important to know that your offensive acts just as much as a defensive tool as it is an offense. So a lot of players will equally use their tanks to attack and to defend, because they are competent defenders just as much as they are competent attackers. Okay, so that out of the way. Oh yeah, one more thing as well. If you're coming from BZ2, if you're coming from Battlezone 2, bear in mind that defense in Battlezone 1 is a lot weaker. I've only got a few hours of experience on BZ2, but what I did see is that the turrets in that game are really good, and the gun towers are very strong, but in this game not so much. Especially the turret in this game is really weak in comparison. But we'll start with the gun tower. So let's think of a good place to put it. I think you can build one here. Yeah, you can build one up on this plateau. Okay. So let's imagine I am gonna set up a gun tower over here. Oh, power, oh well, that's fine, doesn't really matter too much, the power. Generally in games you'll get the S power, the solar power, but there isn't really much of a difference. The L power has more hull, but it costs more at the same time. Okay. There's a gun tower. It shoots at 200 meters. So if I was an enemy now, I would be in danger at this point. And as you've seen, it's a good idea to build them against an edge so that their head can shoot over and get a clear shot. If I move this gun tower back slightly, let's say I just put it there instead. From down here, this gun tower cannot cover this area. It's in range to shoot, but it can't actually hit me from here because it's just not. It's not got the ability to see over. So try to make your gun towers against edges, against the periphery, against an edge, so they can see over. So the cost, gun tower is 6, but you need a power, so that's 10 at least. L power is I think 6 or 8, so that's quite expensive, but generally you're paying 4 for a power. So combined that's a 10 scrap setup. Let me just switch that out, it's bothering me that it's an L power. Like I say, generally it's an S power you'll get in the game. And important to note, powers reach 100 meters. So this is fine. Let's try this. That's fine. Let's try this. This is really quite far away now from the power. This is about as far as you want to build from a power. If you build right on the edge, so if you make a gun tower 100 meters from the power, the minute the square turns from yellow to green, it might not actually work. You might find that it just sort of spins and doesn't shoot. It's a known bug. It's kind of when you have a gun tower that's right on the limit between where there's power and where there isn't. And so generally to avoid that, build close to 100, but not quite at 100. So this is like something like 90, 95. That makes sure that there's no chance of that bug happening. So just don't build them on 100, but pretty close. And you should always pair each gun tower to at least 2 powers. Okay, so like this gun tower is powered by these two powers. They're both within 100 meters of this tower. Because if I am attacking, if I'm coming in to attack this, I could just go around and destroy the power, because powers are very weak compared to gun towers. They have much less hull, I think probably around half or less. But if there's 2, obviously I can't just rush the power. because there's 2 powers, and so I may as well just fight the gun tower itself. So I try to pair one gun tower to at least 2 powers. Otherwise it's really easy to destroy. Another thing to know with gun towers is they are they have a blind spot, obviously. So if I attack from this side, this gun tower now cannot shoot me because I'm behind this power. So they have blind spots, which means it's a good idea to arrange them in such a way that they cover all angles. So now if I came from this side, if I came from the west, this one's on me, and if I came from the east, this one's going to be covering. So that's how they work. I'll show you an example of a decent setup with gun towers. So let's move us over here. Let's say we're deployed here, and let's move here. Okay. So we're in the west channel or blast chamber, and it has 2 entrances. So north and south. So playing in this area is pretty good. It's quite good to defend. It's a big area though, so you're kind of covering a really large amount of the map when you play here. You may not be able to hold all of this area. Players might be able to get in. They could even get a production unit up on the geyser, so north or south. So yeah, just bear that in mind. You might not be able to hold the whole thing. But let's say I am. A good place for a gun tower with this natural terrain wall is just to set it up like this. So power, let's say there, and then my gun tower here. That's within distance, that's within 100 meters, so it's powered. And for an attacking player, this is quite a good setup. This is quite a, well, it's not good for them, it's a strong setup up against them, because as you come around the corner, gun tower's got a clear shot, 200 meter shot, I'm well within range to be hit. And I have to push the corner in order to get access to the power. So when you do make gun towers, try to use them around the terrain. Try to use them with the terrain as a natural wall to help you keep this protected. Always remember, of course, players can climb terrain, almost always. In Redux, the terrain has this sort of smoothing added to it. I think was probably an accident or something they didn't realise was going to cause a problem, but okay, well I can't do it, but up here is easier. So from here I can climb up this terrain, and then I can very easily drop in behind this power and destroy it before the gun tower can do anything. And here, if this gun tower was hostile to me, I would be safe because this is a blind spot. They won't obviously shoot at their own, they won't shoot through their own things, they'll just sort of wait for you to drift out of the way, just strafe out of the way. So here, like this, it's pretty weak. So what you can obviously do is back it up with a second power, and then a second tower covering the flank. So this is a much better setup. This is actually going to be quite hard to deal with. When you have this setup, people are probably just going to use howitzers on it. This is kind of the main thing of gun towers. They're really weak to howitzers. You know, you have one up, and the howitzer can take it out from 600 meters, 500 meters. So they will be hit by howitzers. Okay, let's see. And how to counter them. So this is a subsection of the video. How to counter a gun tower. I'll show you. There's generally 4 ways to do it. I'm just going to set this tower to be hostile to me. Okay. That tower should now be firing at me. No, okay. Guess I'll just switch it out for a CCA tower. Okay, there we are, it's on me. So, 4 ways to destroy a gun tower. Number 1, distracting it and having your AI do the job for you. So, as you can see by using T key, this gun tower is looking at me. If I move, it's going to follow me. You see, its gun is following me. Because of that, this scout can safely move in, and look at that, no problem at all. Very easy to do that. And gun towers cannot sort of change their target. Once they lock onto something, they stay on it unless you drive out of its distance. So if you do intend to do this, you need to stay within its range. So it's looking at you, it's locked onto you, and it won't switch target. But as a commander, you can't order your gun tower to change target, sadly. It'd be nice if you could, but it's not possible. Second way is to abuse its range. I would have liked to have an SDF gun tower for this, hostile to me, but oh yeah, I know how to do it. What am I doing? I'm being stupid. Okay. So, Team 2, build American buildings, gun tower. Okay, there's a gun tower, NSDF gun tower, range of 200 meters. Just so you know, CCA gun towers have a range of 150, and then you should be upgrading them with blast cannon to have 200 meters. So here it is. What I can do is this. So I can sort of straddle the line between 200 meters. So I can just come in and fire, back out. But let's just make sure it's going to aim at me. Yep, okay, there we are, it's shooting at me. As you saw there, sometimes gun towers take a second to react. I'm not really sure what causes that, but sometimes they won't shoot immediately. Now that it's facing towards me, it should react kind of fast. But as you can see, it's very easy to get shots off before it has time to react and fire at me. And you can obviously mortar it from here. So I'm safe, 203 meters. Use the target lead indicator to get the clear shot. And there you go. So one more would kill it. So that's the second way of destroying it. Outrange it, mortar, SG stabber. This is the third way to do it. I'm just going to replace it with a new one. This is not the greatest way, but it works. You can do this. Let's say I have some scouts. They're following me. And I can do this. I can just drive at the gun tower. It's going to start shooting me. Yeah, there we go. And I can just sit underneath it. And my AI eventually... Well, I am in the way. I mean, I could just shoot it like this. But then I could also... okay. They're gonna shoot me instead. Never mind. But that's the way you can do it as well. You can drive underneath it and then shoot it. And eventually your AI will get a clear shot, but that time they decided to just kill me instead, which is nice. And let's set it up one more time. Okay, okie dokie. So let's power. Guns out. Within distance, yep. You can also do this. So just like with a walker, gun towers are weak to thumper. So you wait for the wave to arrive. Oh, okay, that wasn't so good. I mean, thumper is kind of inconsistent, but there you go. That's given me an opening there. That's a decent amount of health taken. Another one. There you go. So it's not as good as outranging it, but it does work. It does work. It does certainly work. So you can use the thumper to get in real close and to just outdo the DPS. If I had wingmen with me, that would have been a lot easier because they would be shooting as well, and the gun tower can't fire back. But you basically get a window of 1 to 2 seconds when you thump. So it's not as good as it is on a walker, but it does certainly give you time when it's kind of disabled. The same applies to turrets as well. Turrets actually have the same problem. I'm going to move on to turrets in a minute, but I will just sort of quickly demonstrate this now as I'm on the point of thumper to disable units. Let's just give this pack a chance to deploy and set up. 7 seconds, in case you didn't know. 7 seconds to set up. Thumper goes in. Turret's disabled. Easy safe kill. There we go. So, should you use gun towers? It's debatable. A lot of players don't like them. I do. Even though they're weak, even though they're easy to counter. So I showed you 4 ways to counter, and bearing in mind a 5th way would just be to, like I say, howitzer them with the range, where they're safe. But gun towers, not only do they take time to kill, they take time, they take resources to get rid of. They give you control over a map for some period of time, and especially against completely safe units. So, for example, if I have another gun tower. So yeah, with gun towers, what they're good for is kind of locking down an area, even if it's just for a small amount of time. So just going to remake this gun tower again. This hostile gun tower. Start far away. Yeah, that's some range. Okay. With a gun tower, they are easy to get rid of, but it does take some time, and it does sort of require your opponent to sort of commit to it, sort of spend some time taking it out. So if the player chooses to destroy it himself, he has to obviously come over here, and when he does that, you know that he's not somewhere else on the map. So it's a good way to force your opponent to sort of reveal his position, come up and deal with it. Or he has to send in his army, which requires resources, and he may lose some in the process. Or he has to move his howitzers in position to take it out. So from there, howitzers might be somewhere around here, up on this hill, for a bit of a terrain advantage. And while he's doing that, you obviously know that he's occupied with that gun tower. And when a scavenger moves in, I have one here, it's obviously not going to have a chance, it's going to get destroyed. It's going to be really good for stopping scavengers from coming in and taking scrap. So what I do when I move up and I've had a fight with someone, let's say let's spawn some scrap. Imagine I have just had a fight with someone here, and there's scrap to take. first thing I do is I bring up a silo, and then if I have time, if I have the resources, I will go ahead with a gun tower and just sort of make sure, one, his scavengers can't take it, and two, I have something to slow him down. So as you would look at this isn't too hard to deal with, but it does take a certain amount of time, and gun towers aren't too expensive, so 10 scrap is not so bad when you consider that you're locking down an area for at least a minute, maybe perhaps a minute of time you get with a gun tower placed. So that's that. And so overall I would give them a rating of 8 out of 10. Yeah, I quite like them personally. I mean, obviously they're not great, they're not an ideal thing, they're not the high priority thing to make, but they do certainly do a job. They do it pretty well. And for defensive, they kind of are the best option you have. Like I say, this game doesn't really favour defensive play, but this is the best you have. So on to turrets. Turrets are almost useless. They're almost so bad that you would never use them, but you can make them useful. You can sort of apply them in a good way. The first thing to know is on their own stock, they are very weak. The damage output is terrible. It's 1 minigun or 1 chain gun for a CCA turret. So for 1 scrap, you can upgrade it, give it a dual mini or a dual chain. That is good. That doubles the DPS for 1 scrap, which I would always recommend you do. So if you make a turret, always give it at least a minigun, just so it has twice as much damage for 1 scrap. That's not bad. Or what I like to do is give it a single SP. A single SP stabber gives it kind of enough firepower to be a threat. What's good about turrets, and if you didn't know, is they do not appear on radar when deployed. So let's give us a turret just around the corner here. We'll let it deploy. I'll move this one out of the way just in case it decides to get involved. Okay. So there we are, that turret is deployed and it's firing, and as you can see on my radar, you can see 2 red on the left, that's the power and the gun tower, but you cannot see the turret. I can't even tag it with T. I can't even get the target on it. See, I'm pressing T and it just won't give me... Okay, it does when I'm in line of sight, it gives me it, but here I can't get it. It just won't give me it. So in that regard, turrets can be good if you put them behind terrain, in a corner, behind an entrance. They can give an element of surprise. So you know, if I'm just coming around the corner now, I have no idea there's a turret there. It's going to start hitting me up, it's going to cause some trouble. It's easy to kill. I'll just show you. Okay, almost going to die actually. Just a little bit of repair. They are easy to kill. You can just sort of strafe the shots, and that's nice and easy. So yeah, they're not great, but they're only 6 scrap, and they can give a nice surprise element. The range of a turret is 150, even if you upgrade. So if you give it SP for a range of 200, it won't use that 200. It won't inherit the additional range. So that's just to bear in mind. So yeah, if I was playing here, if I had my production units here in a game, I might place a turret just in that corner there, so that if a player comes around to attack, they won't see it on their radar, and it's just going to start shooting them up as they come around. There is a way around this, of course. If I have a wingman and I place another turret in this spot here, No, don't do that. So again, I cannot see it on radar. Well, you can now because I've got editor on, but now you can't see it on radar, so you may not know it's there. You can open attack of a scout or any offensive unit, and you can see it there, number 1 on the list. So you can get around that. You can do what is called attack scanning, basically, which is where you just keep pressing opening attack whenever you move around the map. I do this a lot. I do this kind of constantly in a strategy game. I'm constantly opening attack with my wingmen, just to scan for any kind of enemy that, 1, I haven't noticed, or 2, it's a turret and it's not showing on radar. And yeah, so you can see easily that's one way you can deal with a turret. If you think there's one somewhere around the place, open up attack with wingman and you can see there it is. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about turrets. What I was going to say, yeah, so you should upgrade them, at least with a minigun or a chain gun, because that, like I said, doubles damage for 1 scrap, which is a very good cost-effective upgrade. And try to place them out of sight, out of line of sight, so they can have some kind of surprise element as you go around the corner. If you go around a corner and there's 2 turrets of SP, it's likely that they will eject a player. So that's pretty good. You can catch someone off guard with that trick. So they're not. I don't want to say they're useless, but I would certainly say to you, don't use them unless you're really going to plan out a spot to hide them in. You're going to upgrade them, and you're going to, hopefully you think they're going to make a difference for you in the game. They're going to do something effective. They're pretty good against scavengers, because obviously they can't shoot back. If you have a scrap site, a scrap field, you could drop one in a scrap field. But again, try to keep it somewhat hidden, at least from 1 or 2 angles, just so it sort of goes unnoticed for a period of time, and then it does something for you. Yeah, okay. And I would rate a turret a 7 out of 10. Actually, I'd give it a 7, which is probably quite higher than quite a bit higher than what some people would imagine I'd give it. But yeah, I think they have an ability to be good. They do have potential. They're not truly useless, but if you're coming from Battlezone 2, they are nothing like turrets in that game. Turrets in that game are very strong. In this, they are very bad, but like I say, not useless. I like them. On to Minelayers. So Minelayers, they were kind of meta in the game. They used to be standard meta. Everyone would use one to some extent. But over time they seem to kind of just fallen out of favour with players. I don't think anything major has changed with them. They still function the same as they used to, but yeah, I mean, they're quite easy to deal with. So if I have a enemy mine layer, I'll just pick one over here. I'll create a hostile mine layer, and I will set it to 2 lay mines. Let's get it there. And let's edit task. Where on earth is lay mines? There it is. Lay mines. Okay. Let's give it a chance to do its thing. Okay, so there we go. Mines are easy to deal with. You can shoot them very easily, or you can mortar them, which is probably the best way to deal with it. So just drop a mortar on it. So it's very easy to clear minefields, but like I say, it requires time and it requires ammo, and it just kind of distracts your opponent. It just sort of buys you a few seconds of time. Even AI will attack mines naturally, so if I move this mine layer away now, it's served its purpose. Bring my scout here, and I place it over here. It should start to attack the mines. Yeah, so it's just sort of doing nothing now. It's not under any command. It's just gonna clear the minefield pretty well. So as a result, miners, as I know, miners, they're not too good. But it's important to know that they only cost, I believe it's 4 scrap. Let's check that. Pretty sure it's 4 scrap, but let's just make sure.
Ready to move. I need power. Going for geyser.
And I guess a good use of a mine layer is to, one, on an entrance to your base, it gives you a warning, it gives you time to get back because you know someone's approaching. And 2, yeah, when you expect a scavenger to approach on a scrap field, you could drop down mines from a mine layer, and that will, kind of like a turret, kind of like a gun tower, it just holds them back for a period of time before the player turns up to deal with them. What am I doing? Okay, yeah. Mine layer is 4, yeah, so 4 scrap. That's how rarely I use them. I didn't even know the price. I had to check that. Wasn't sure if it's 4 or 6. But yeah, they do work as you'd imagine. You know, they make a minefield. That minefield has to be dealt with, and they're 4 scrap, so they're not too bad. I'd give it a 5 in terms of a rating out of 10. I sometimes use them, mainly just to sort of, again, add more diversity to my play. To close down an entrance, I quite like it. On Canyon Madness, if I'm playing in mids, I will have mine layers on the back entrances, just, again, as an extra layer of defense. Because, let's just send my scout into a mine. It does pretty decent damage. A mine is fairly powerful. So we watch the scout's health as it goes over a mine. That's pretty good. That's like a third or a quarter of a scout's health. So, well, it's actually not far from half health. So that's pretty decent. So when mines do hit, they're not bad. Some details to note is that mines expire after 5 minutes of being placed. And I'll give credit to Herb there, Herb McDurperson. He told me that. So yeah, mines do expire after some time, 5 minutes according to him to be exact. So yeah, I would mainly use them as an early warning system to know that something is approaching. Especially good against cloak. Cloak is basically considered to be not at all acceptable in Strat because it's so broken. But if you happen to be in a situation where you are playing someone using the Chinese with a cloak, or a Red Devil, Scarlet Git, and they're cloaking, or Crimson Bastard, you can use mines to alert you of their presence and hopefully get back in time to stop them if you do happen to be against someone playing with cloak. Yeah. Then of course, Howitzers. As I said in the offensive video, they do kind of function better as an attacking unit, but equally you can defend with a howitzer, and you should be whenever someone's howitzing you, when they're sieging you. You should be using these to fire back. So let's say, see this gun tower here that I made earlier. Let's imagine that my player has built an outpost there, and he's pushing up on my position here. I can get my howitzer and I can attack very comfortably to basically push back anyone who's getting too close. So like I said, range of Howies around 500 to 600 meters depending on your terrain advantage or disadvantage. And you can just use them to clear anything that's too close. So imagine the player's made a silo or a gun tower. You can comfortably get rid of it, and within that time already the gun tower is coming down to half health. So the howitzers are very good, and yeah, of course 10 out of 10 unit, best unit. So yeah, that's how they work defensively. You just have them around your base. A good tip with Howies: don't place them together. keep them a bit separated, but still within the same kind of distance to a target. So that in the event that if a player does use his own to hit yours, he won't destroy 2 of yours in one go. You know, he has to manually select one and then aim on the other, rather than taking out 2 in the same kind of volley, really, because the splash damage is quite substantial. And I suppose the Walker is a defensive unit, I suppose you could say that. It's better used in defense than offense, because of just how damn slow it is. And yeah, it's just a nice obstacle. So I'm coming in to attack. Let's make him hostile. Let's make him team 2. Is he going to shoot me? No. Okay, let's manually order him to attack me. Okay, so I'm coming in to attack. There's a walker in the way. I have to thump it. And I am just barely past him. He's still shooting, but I had to use a thump, and a thump costs, well, you can see there, there's only 3 uses left in it. It takes down a lot of ammo. If you have a full stock of ammo as a grizzly, you have 6 uses of thump, so you drop 1 and 1/6 of your ammo gone already, so that's pretty nice. And thumping them only temporarily neutralizes them. They will still, you know, kind of get back up off the floor and come after you, which is not bad. And yeah, of course the Golem is miles better than the Sasquatch. So as a CCA player, your main defensive tool for CCA is the Golem. That's your main, that's the first thing you want to crank out if you want to have something defensive up. It's a very intimidating unit. You need to deal with it carefully. And very important to note, if you are playing CCA, upgrade your gun towers, give them dual blast, 2 blast cannons. It's 100% worth the investment. A chain gun tower is awful, because you can just outrange it 150 meters for a chain gun tower, so it's easy to get around. So always give your CCA gun towers blast. And SDF gun towers, are good as they are, there's nothing you can give them to make them better, so you just keep them stock with a single blast. Alright then, so in conclusion, defensive tools are there for you. They certainly do a job, they do it fairly well, but as you get better at the game, you find it much easier to deal with these units. Like a gun tower for me is, and for many players, it's not really a threat, it's more like an obstacle. It's a waste of time. You know, I see a gun tower and I think, oh great, I have to spend a few seconds with this, which would give my opponent time to further his setup and to get himself ready to counterattack. And yeah, so when you are defending, when a player makes his attack, you take that scrap, obviously as soon as you can. And as you lose units, replace them. So when you're defending, you lose a gun tower, it's a good idea to put another one up, just to keep your opponent back. Just to keep, kind of just saying, like, no, you know, just saying no to your opponent. Like, you won't get through here. I will keep replacing these things, you have to keep trying. And maybe over time you will end up taking more scrap from him, and he will eventually kind of run out of resources, he'll be exhausted. And then you can push out and begin your offensive play. Okay. And it's also remember that your offensive units often are the best defense. So you don't need to play with gun towers. There's lots of people who rarely build gun towers, rarely build turrets, and instead they just use their tanks as defense as well. You know, keeping some back at the recycler, keeping some with them on the attack. And obviously I will explain unit control in another video, but just because we're here now, I may as well tell you. Got a couple tanks. Let me just get rid of the scout. I don't need the scout. Couple tanks here. 9 to defend, 1 for the factory. So there you go. This is a better command than follow. So you could tell them to follow the factory, but you'll find that they're kind of easy to snipe. That they're just sitting still. They're not moving. They're in place. So this is a really easy snipe. So when you tell them to defend a factory rather than follow it, it's still not ideal, but it's better. They will kind of slowly move around the factory, just sort of do a slow circle around the factory. And this, I mean, look, even there, look, he's sitting still. That's an easy snipe, but it's generally better to use defend than to use follow, because they will move a bit more. Yeah, okie dokie. And of course, final note, early game, you are your defense. You are at the same time offense and you are defense, your own tank. You have to defend what you have and attack at the same time. That's why early game is really interesting in terms of how it plays out, and it really has an impact on the next stages of the game. Because if you have to defend a scrap field and you lose your tank, you're in a really bad spot to recover. It's not over, but you have to climb a hill to make that back. You're on the back foot already. And if you don't defend that scrap, they can immediately wipe out your initial scrap gathering procedures, and that can cripple you. Right, so just a quick example. I spawn here, recycler here, factory here. I take my first silo round here, which is a standard move. You come round to the northwest, you put a silo here, and my opponent south spawns, and he races up and destroys it. My silo over here. That's really going to set me back hard. So you need to be, if you can, defending silos and scavengers, or having a turret or a gun tower there. But just bear in mind that, like I say, as you play better opponents, this defense is absolutely a cakewalk for anyone who's good at the game. This is no challenge at all. Even if this was a game now and I was an enemy and these were the defenses, so a turret, a gun tower, then 2 tanks, I feel like I have a decent chance to knock all those defenses out, and then I just have to wait for a wingman to arrive or ammo to arrive, and then the factory's mine, the recycler's mine. So don't depend on these units. Don't depend on them to do the whole job for you. You need to be also coming back home to defend, but they will certainly slow your opponent down, and they will make them kind of draw more forces over or use more resources to deal with this. This does take a certain amount of time and energy to clear out. So that's how I see defense. I see defense kind of like obstacles in terms of time. So a gun tower for me is 10 seconds of time that I can give myself as a precaution or a warning or a sign that something's happening, and that gives me time to come back and defend, and then obviously counter-attack from there. So that is the defensive options in this game. Not great, but certainly there for you. Okay, I hope that helps too. Next up is going to be an example of a startup. I'm going to talk about starting up, how to be quick, how to be efficient, what to build in what order, and sort of the do's and don'ts of the first 5 minutes of the game. Okay, guys, peace out.